You've already referenced love and friendship, which I think are rather big themes from at least from our point of view about what education is and ought to be. That in fact love is an important part of education and friendship is an important part, but also beauty. And there's one of my favorite dialogues in your book, The Love of Learning, is with George Harn. And it's about beauty and education. It seems that a proper understanding of beauty is important for both civilization and education. And that you and others, and I would include myself, see the restoration of beauty as objective, the idea of beauty as objective, to be central to any proper education. Harn said this in your book, and I'm quoting here: "Fundamentally, the arts are about order. Think of the classical definition of beauty: unity, harmonia, the harmony of the parts to each other and to the whole, and claritas, the gleam that catches the eye. The thing that attracts your attention and holds it. That is a piece of objective truth." End quote. Can you explain beauty properly understood? How does beauty figure in the thinking of these four figures that we've discussed?
Well, as you mentioned in the dialogue I have with George Harn, professor of musicology, he talks very eloquently about beauty. And I will say that he's speaking of beauty from a particular tradition. It's the Thomistic tradition from Thomas Aquinas, these terms that you used, that Aquinas says that, beauty is about seeing the whole. Beauty is radiance. It radiates into our intelligence. And so beauty, in this understanding, this kind of Thomistic understanding, beauty is about attentiveness. Beauty arrests our attention. And we take pleasure in what it is that we're beholding. And the secrets of this radiance go into our inner existence. It gives us a kind of a rush of knowledge, right? So beauty is so important to education because beauty is something that can unite us. Experiences of beauty are something we can share in without aggrandizing ourselves at the expense of another. If you remember, I kept coming back to this point of the problem-solving approach to education, that for Dewey, everything is a scientific experiment. He eventually, by the way, tried to go back to beauty and aesthetics, but he's not grounding it in Aquinas. And so it remains at the level of the emotional. It's not a path to truth. It's just one of those subjective needs that we have, but it's not kind of fundamental. This is not at all what George Harn is saying about beauty, right? Of course, George Harn drawing on Aquinas. And then I think with Paulo Freire, right, the problem-solving approach to education, the beginning principle is that reality is a series of contradictions, right? That's why you have dialogue and anti-dialogue. You have oppressed and oppressors. You've got opposites. Reality is opposites. Yes, we seek synthesis, we seek to overcome them, but we always end up with this fundamental problem. So this understanding of beauty, which is why Giussani was so interested in promoting beauty as integral to education, because beauty is something that's not a contradiction between opposites. It can unite us. The beauty of the Grand Canyon is something everybody can see, right? And so we share in these experiences of beauty. And in doing so, we see that we're on a shared quest for truth. So, I think what we're trying to do is help by bringing beauty back in. And by beauty, I don't only mean musicology or fine arts, right? Those are works of the fine arts, which are, of course, important. But beauty as a principal category of human experience, which then should get us to reflect on our human nature and the nature of truth. What has happened in the modern world is that the scientific worldview has made beauty purely subjective, and I would put Dewey in this category. Beauty is important, but it's subjective. Or in the postmodern view, beauty is emotional. It's about arousing us to an emotional state. Whereas again, in the Thomistic tradition, which is what Giussani's drawing on, and Maritain for sure, Beauty moves us to intuit the integritas, the whole, right? It's like standing, John Henry Newman talked about the beauty of the truth is like standing on top of a mountain where you look out and see the whole. That doesn't mean that you don't descend the mountain and look into the specialized, particular small t truths about, how the sea got to be this way and, how the cars are moving, but that there's a wholeness to the truth. And so the reason beauty matters is that it speaks to our soul, which desires to see the whole behind the parts. Again, remember, Dewey denies that there is a whole behind the parts. Maritain and Giussani say no. And, what's at stake with this? I mean, it just, again, I'm not talking about beautiful paintings here, as important that is, and I'm not talking about the beautiful view in Malibu, as important as that is. I'm talking about the formation of a person who is a person of desires, who's a person of passions, but recovering the classical understanding of our desires and passions as movements of the soul that lead us to truth, not just outbursts of emotion. So the moral and intellectual virtues are needed so that experiences of beauty can lead us to the truth. And what's the alternative to this? The alternative, which Maritain said, I already quoted him, is a stony technocratic view of the world that leaves us with experimentation but not certainty, or a kind of praxis or action where reflection only really becomes a tool to transforming the world, rather than what beauty can do, which is attentiveness and receptivity.